Right, good afternoon. Thank you for joining this webinar on what is a pension. My name is Duncan May. I work at Hargreaves Lansdown as a financial wellbeing specialist. As you can see, we of course look after your workplace pension. This session is being recorded, so you can refer back to the recording at a later date should you wish to. There is also a Q&A function within Zoom, so if you have any questions as we go along, please do make use of that. My colleague Alex is also here and he'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A as we go along. There'll also be plenty of time for any questions at the end. So retirement is, for many of us, certainly feel quite a long way off. And it's very easy for us to put off planning for retirement when there are other more immediate financial goals to work towards. But if you've logged into this webinar, I imagine you'll be thinking that the sooner that we start thinking about where the income is going to come from in retirement, the more prepared we're likely to be, and the better chance we'll have of living the lifestyle we want in retirement. That's ultimately what our pensions are for. Problem is, though, that for many of us, pensions do seem almost opaque. The information given to us by our pension providers might be quite limited, and as a result it might be a place where simply our money goes each month. We don't really have much of an idea what happens after that. So over the next 20 minutes or so, I hope I'll be able to answer some of these questions, explaining how your pension works, what options you do have, and what we might want to be thinking about in the lead up to retirement. Remember, the information in the presentation is intended as information to help you make your own decisions as opposed to personal advice. So this is how your pension works. So a pension is a tax efficient way to save and put money aside for later life to provide income for us to live on when we stop working. How it works, simply very much like a savings account. So you put some money in each month, most likely through your salary. In addition to that, your employer will also be paying in some money each month on top of your salary as well. Once paid into the pension, that money is then invested. So your pension contributions automatically go into a default investment fund. That's just there as a default option. You can decide where your pension is invested. And that's something that's really important to think about as well. When you come to access your pension, you can either swap money in your pension for secure income, or you can treat it more like a savings account and draw from it and leave the money invested. So you can start withdrawing money from the age of 55 currently. As you'll see, that's due to rise to 57 in 2028. So for most of us here, I imagine that'll be at least 57 before we can start withdrawing money from our pension. But as a general rule, you can start accessing it 10 years before the state pension age. So you don't need to wait until the state pension age to retire if you don't want to. And similarly, you can actually start withdrawing money from your pension whilst you're still in work as well. You simply go to your pension provider and start the process that way. What are the main benefits of saving into a pension? Why would we save into a pension as opposed to somewhere else? So the main one is the tax advantages. So tax relief is the first main benefit. Any contributions we make qualify for tax relief, so we save income tax, and we also potentially save national insurance as well on any money that we contribute into a pension. We'll talk about how the tax saving works a little bit later on. Second main benefit is your workplace pension. Your employer is legally obliged to pay money into your pension on your behalf as well. So remember, that's some money that you can get from your employer going into your pension each month on top of your salary. Second main benefit, or third main benefit, should I say, is the investments as well. So you can invest where you like, but remember, within your pension, any growth or profits you make on the investments within your pension are completely tax-free. So you can grow your money free from tax eating into your returns in any way. To remember, of course, there are tax implications on withdrawing. 25% of your pension can be withdrawn tax-free. The rest is taxed as income in retirement. So when we're young, quite a long way off, it's really common, probably a lot of you will probably be in this position when there's earning perhaps a bit less than we might expect to later on. In later life, we've also got other financial commitments that we might be prioritizing as well. And as a result, we might be tempted to put retirement planning to one side for the time being. Unfortunately, though, that can cost us dearly in later life. The money we pay in early on has longer to remain invested, longer to grow, and longer to benefit from what we call compounding or growth on growth. This example on the screen is just designed to show you the impact of delaying contributions. So what we've got is a member just contributing £240 a month. That's just the total amount going into the pension each month. So bear in mind, some of that could be an employer contribution. Some of that could be that tax saving as well we talked about. So the cost to that individual member could be actually quite a lot less than £240 a month. But as you can see, if you look at what that might get you, maintaining that flat level of £240 over this member's career, delaying contributions by 9 years could actually cost them as much as 33% of the retirement income they might get from that pension. So just remember, of course, if you aren't in a position to pay in as much as you perhaps would like to at the moment, you're certainly not on your own. But if we can maintain some level of pension contribution, it will help us get there. And even if it's just enough to get the money that we're getting from our employer. So this is what we believe, well, some of the things to think about when it comes to good pension planning, probably the three most important things to think about. Firstly, am I contributing enough? Your pension is a savings account, so the more you pay in, the more you like to have to live on when you come to retire. Of course, this is a difficult one when balancing it with other financial commitments, but simple 1 or 2% increase over a, say, 20 or 30 year period could still have a huge impact on the value of that pension pot. We'll be talking about contributions in a bit more detail in just a second. The second major decision is, where is my pension invested? So this is where the rest of the growth on our pension is going to come from. We will be putting this to one side in this presentation. We'll be talking about investments in the remaining presentations as well, which you'll have access to recordings of. Remember, of course, you don't have to invest yourself, but it's important to think about whether the pension fund, which is probably the default pension fund you're invested in, whether that's appropriate for your circumstances and your own attitude to risk. You can switch, but if you aren't comfortable picking your own investments, do think about seeking financial advice, as a financial advisor can certainly help you put together some investments that might be more appropriate for your risk appetite. Final thing is keeping things simple. Our experience shows that we're more likely to spend time planning for retirement, and we're more likely to make better decisions when things are easier. So we want our pension to be as easy to manage as possible. So get an online account set up. That way you can do lots of things online. You can check the current value and make changes. It's also really common to accrue lots of pensions throughout our lives. So this ultimately makes things more difficult if we've got lots of potentially quite small pension pots dotted around. So have a look at what you're being offered by each pension provider and try and identify any that might not be worth keeping, because you can transfer. There's lots to think about as well. So it does pay to start planning early. Remember, it is a long-term saving or investment plan ultimately. If you don't understand everything away, don't worry, just take your time to make use of things like the resources and information available to you. So we'll talk about pension contributions now. How much should we be paying into our pensions? There isn't, unfortunately, a sweet spot or a perfect level of contribution, and in practice, the amount that we're looking to pay in is more likely to be limited by how much we can afford, as much as anything else. We have done some research on this, and that's that figure on screen. So we believe that a 12% level of contribution, so 12% of our salary over a 50-year working life, should be enough for most of us to achieve a moderate standard of living in retirement. Moderate lifestyle provides some financial security and some flexibility with our spending, so a foreign holiday each year, eating out a few times a month, for example. A few things just to make clear here: this is total contributions, so that is yours, your employers, and any money anyone else is paying into your pension as well. But also bear in mind it's based on a 50-year working life, so that would mean potentially contributing from the age of 18 to the age of 68, somebody's state pension age. In which case, ultimately, if you're looking to retire early, perhaps you might be looking to pay in a bit more than that if you're in a position to do so. But again, if you're not in a position to contribute as much at this level or as much as you hoped at the moment, you're certainly not on your own, so don't worry. This is why it pays to start planning early, even if you're not in a position to make any changes just yet. So the thing is that 12% is very much a guideline. Everyone's position is different. We're all we all started contributing to pensions at different times, will as a result have different amounts saved up. We'll also be on different salaries, and we will most likely have slightly different financial and retirement goals as well. So really useful exercise to carry out periodically. This is one of the most common things we go over in our pension one-to-one meetings, is having a look at a pension calculator tool. This will give you a rough idea based on your salary, how much you're contributing, your existing pensions, and your age and retirement date, a rough idea of how much income you might expect to get from your personal pensions in retirement. So again, that's why it really helps if you can access the current value of your pensions really easy. It makes it a lot easier just to quickly pop your details into a pension calculator and see what the most recent figures look like. So you'll get things like a projected pension value, tax-free cash, and annual income you might get based on that. With this, remember, of course, you don't have to take the tax-free lump sum at the point of retirement. You can phase your tax-free cash throughout retirement to boost the income you get later on. The annual income figure is also based on buying an annuity, which is where you swap money in your pension for a secure income in retirement. You don't have to buy a new annuity. There are other options as well. Remember, of course, this is just the income from your personal pensions as well. There is a state pension that's currently £9,339 a year. So potentially £18,500 from the state if there are 2 state pensions in the household. Remember, of course, if you're retiring as a couple, you'll be sharing lots of living costs, so take into account both your finances as well when looking at those figures. The calculator, of course, does have its limitations. It is a projection tool. It runs on lots of different assumptions. One of the main ones that limits how useful it can be is that it can't take into account future pay rises that you might get. So that's why it pays to come back to it periodically. Perhaps if you get a pay rise or once a year, just put your most recent details into the calculator and see what the results look like. That way we can identify any serious shortfalls sooner rather than later, giving us longer to do something about them. When it comes to pension contributions, here are a few things that you might want to think about. First one is employer contributions. So remember, your employer is legally obliged to pay money into your pension. So check your company contribution basis. You'll need to speak to your HR team or go onto your benefits website to do that. Check how much your employer is currently paying in. Check how much you're paying in as well. Some employers will pay in more if you do so. If not, you can always check with them if you can pay in more. You usually can pay in more, and that can often simply be done by just requesting through either your benefits website or through your HR team that you want to increase your salary by your contributions by a percentage. Salary sacrifice is the next thing to think about. So this is a method of contributing to your pension before tax. You can only get it through a workplace pension because it's paid in by your employer, and some employers don't offer it. Some employers, you may need to opt in to use salary sacrifice, or you also might find that you're using it already. In each case, it's really worth understanding how it works, because if you can't benefit from it at the moment, you may get the option to do so at a later date. I'll talk about how it works in just a second. Check into a pension calculator once a year. Again, when you're earlier on in your retirement planning, those figures aren't going to be as accurate as they are later on, but it's still a really useful one to help you plan your contributions. So review those annually as well, or potentially at life events, and think about future pay rises now. If you're not in a position to pay more now, again, lots of people in that situation, if you get a pay rise, perhaps that's a time when you can start thinking about increasing your contributions going forward. This is how the tax relief on your pension contributions will most likely work then. So there's 2 methods that we're aware of. So salary sacrifice is one of the options that your employer may offer. If not, you might be contributing by the relief at source method, which is the normal way of getting tax relief on your pension contributions. So we'll talk about relief at source first. How this works is effectively the pension contribution that you make goes in from your take-home pay, so after you've paid tax and national insurance. You're entitled to tax relief on your contributions. So what will happen is if you contribute via this method, the pension provider will claim back basic rate tax relief for you automatically. That's 20% tax relief, and that is normally refunded after a few weeks, and it gets added to your pension afterwards, so a few weeks later. If you are a higher or an additional rate taxpayer, you can claim back the higher or additional rate tax relief. You have to put those contributions on your self-assessment. So if you're ever looking to make a lump sum contribution to your pension, just be aware that this is the method that you would need to use if you're looking to pay in just by a lump sum, for example, from your bank account. If your employer offers salary sacrifice, you might find this is slightly more tax efficient. And what salary sacrifice method of contributing, how it works is it effectively cuts out those two steps. So your contribution goes in before any taxation. So instead of paying that money to you, your employer, they pay that into your pension instead in the form of a larger employer contribution. So what that does is it saves you both income tax and national insurance automatically. So firstly, main benefit is you get a national insurance saving that you wouldn't otherwise get. And the second potential benefit is that if you're a higher or an additional rate taxpayer, all of that higher and additional rate tax saving is actually going into the pension instead of being refunded via your self-assessment. As the name suggests, you are legally agreeing to reduce your salary by the amount that you want to pay into your pension. So just be aware that that means that your reference salary might be deemed to be lower as a result. This may or may not affect things like a mortgage application, but those types of applications are typically made, or those types of assessments, should I say, are typically made on things like affordability, which shouldn't be negatively affected by using salary sacrifice. Certainly something to be aware of. What we'll now move on to is managing your pension or pensions. So these are a few things just to think about. The first one we'll have a look at is moving jobs. So what happens to your workplace pension when you move jobs? We typically don't stay in the same job throughout our lives anymore as we did quite a few years ago. In fact, according to some research, we move jobs on average 11 times throughout our lives. Fortunately, that means we could potentially accrue 11 pensions in that example. Your old pension typically won't be transferred automatically, so your old pension will stay where it is. So first thing to double check is if you move jobs, check the ongoing charges on your pension because they may change once you no longer become a member of that workplace pension scheme. Second thing is keep your pension provider updated. You need to update each provider individually with things like your address, email, contact details as well. And this is ultimately how pensions end up going missing. As soon as you move address, if you haven't updated them, the statements stop coming through. If you can't remember who your pension provider is, it does then mean speaking to your old employer. Your employer may no longer exist. They might have been taken over, and that's where it can become quite difficult. You do have the choice of transferring. You can have your pension follow you throughout your career. It's definitely worth thinking about. If you do have old pensions, then do think about what you're being offered as well. We'll talk about the process of that in just a second. But this is potentially quite a big issue. There is currently millions of pounds sat in lost and dormant pensions in the UK. The government thinks there could be as many as 50 million lost or dormant pensions in the UK by 2050. So if you do have old pensions that you don't have the details for, the sooner you start trying to locate those, most likely the easier it will be to speak to your old employers. There is also a government register of workplace pensions that you may be able to find the contact details for your old pension provider. You can then go to them with things like your national insurance number, date of birth, old address, name of your employer to try and locate the money they have in your name, because it is ultimately your money. Even if it's quite small in value, find out where it is. You can certainly get that transferred across, particularly if it's a sort of relatively small part. Transferring pensions. So if you're not sure whether to transfer, compare what you're being offered. Compare the features, compare the investment performance, compare the investment choice. What's the service like? What are you being charged as well? That's another really important one as well. Ultimately, each pension you have will be incurring ongoing charges. These will be eating into returns. So you might find that some charge quite a bit more. That might be a reason to transfer potentially. Before applying, check if there's an exit penalty or an exit fee. There often isn't, but if there is, it might be quite high and it might make that pension not worth transferring. So just double check with your old provider. Similarly, check if you're going to give up any guaranteed benefits. Again, if you're giving up guarantees that are not offered by the pension you're transferring to, that might be another reason to leave that pension where it is. Why would you transfer? The main reason is that administration. It's a lot easier to plan for retirement, going back to that pension calculator. If you've just got one or say two pension values to check each time you're perhaps reviewing your contributions. If you're looking to transfer a pension, the way you apply is you speak to the pension provider you're looking to move to. So we've got a transfer form, that one on screen. This is something you can post back to us or email. You'll need to provide us with your personal details, of course, and then details of the scheme you're looking to bring across. So you'll need the scheme name. That's often, it should be on any statements, but it might just be the name of your old employer. Your policy number, that should be on any statements. We will definitely need that. So if you don't have access to that, you will need to speak to your old provider. Type of pension, if you can find it, and also the name of the company. So that's the name of the pension provider or administrator. Of course, sign and date. And also remember, you do have to provide us with an investment instruction as well. So you have a default fund for your pension scheme. If you want some information on that, just get in touch with us. We'll be able to provide you with the fact sheet for that and some more information. It will be in your welcome pack, also on your company microsite as well. Through your Hargreaves Lansdown pension, you do benefit from quite a wide range of investments. So that's what a SIPP is, a self-invested personal pension. Doesn't mean you have to invest your pension yourself. Remember, of course, you do have the default fund where your contributions go automatically. But what a SIPP is, it's basically a personal pension with a wide range of investments to choose from. So you get more access to more investments. It's easier to switch than it is with your more traditional personal pension that you may have had previously. There aren't really any restrictions on how often you switch. Well, there aren't any restrictions on how often you switch or how many investments you hold. So you can divide your pension across lots of different investments, even if it means you're switching a small amount of your pension to start off with. All of the changes to your investments can all be done online through the website or through the app as well, or you can just give us a call up. So when you switch, you just need to have the name of the fund you're looking to switch to hand. We can send you some screenshots on that if you find that useful. In terms of making things easier as well, your Hargreaves Lansdown pension does have an app, so you can download this. It's simply called HL, so you can download that for an iPhone or Android. You can log in quite easily and check your current values. If you do have any other Hargreaves Lansdown accounts, these will all appear in the same place. It'll all be accessible under one login. You can, of course, then keep track of how your individual investments are doing, so you know how they're always performing. And you can also find access to fund and share research and fact sheets and lots of useful information through the app as well as the website. A couple more things to mention here. We've got your expression of wish. This is, of course, very important to make plans for what we'd like to happen to our pension should anything happen to us. So any money in your pension left over when you pass away does get passed on. So it's worth nominating a beneficiary or beneficiaries so your pension provider knows who to pay your pension to. The money stays outside of your estate normally, and also it's potentially tax-free. So your beneficiaries will have the option of leaving your pension invested and taking income from it, or potentially taking it as a lump sum. And if you die before the age of 75, it will be completely tax-free, taxed just as income if you die after the age of 75. This can be nominated or done online through your account settings section. So you'll need to go onto the main website to do that, or there's a expression of wish form in your welcome pack if you've still got that. Final thing is just to mention a bit more information about our services as well. So of course, you'll most likely be here because you're automatically enrolled into the Hargreaves Lansdown Group SIPP. That is the workplace pension that has been selected for your employer. We have access to another range of investment accounts, perhaps if you have other financial or saving or investing goals, so you can invest through your workplace plan through a stocks and shares ISA. You can invest through a lifetime ISA. You can also open a cash ISA as well. You can invest outside of a pension, so free from, and an ISA, so free from those pension and ISA allowances through our general investment account, which is just called a fund and share account. We also have a service for cash savings. The active savings service gives you access to a range of different types of savings products, so easy access and fixed term cash savings from a range of banks and building societies who we partner with. And again, of course, all of this is accessible through your existing Hargreaves Lansdown login. So you have one login, one point of contact for each of those accounts. For further information, do have a look at our website, hl.co.uk. There's also your workplace pension website, workplace/pension. You'll also have a specific microsite for your employer as well. HL app we've talked about. If you do have any questions Of course, you do get access to one-to-one meetings with us periodically, but don't feel like you have to wait for those. You can email us, you can contact us through the online secure messaging center as well with absolutely any questions you have. And also feel free to give us a call if you want a quick answer. Give our help desk a call on that number there. They're open 6 days a week and get straight through to a real person who can often answer pretty much any of the questions that might come up. Before everyone goes, if they could take a quick moment to glance over the important investment notes on the screen, just to summarise, the presentation is intended as information as opposed to personal advice. Stock market-based investments aren't guaranteed, can fall in value as well as rise, and the tax and pension rules can and do change from time to time. The benefits depend on your personal circumstances. I'll leave that open just for a few moments. If you have any questions, do let me know. I'll have a quick look at what's in the Q&A chat now. But otherwise, thank you for your time. I hope you found the webinar this afternoon useful.